What is up? I'm Dylan. I'm one of the owners here at STAXX, one of the two co-founders. And on this video today, I have Cindy, who is one of our first team members that joined the team when we've been growing STAXX. And she's quite honestly the best accountant I've met in my life. She's going to say no, but that's just the truth. She's super seasoned. She's a PhD in accounting. She's a certified fraud examiner. She's done extensive fraud work for many years, and she's also a professor. So she's super knowledgeable in the field. We're super lucky to have her a part of the STAXX team. And I just wanted to have a conversation with her about accounting and what it's like, kind of working here at our company. So one thing that's really interesting about Cindy and I's story is Cindy was actually my professor in college for a lot of years, which was a ton of fun. She was my favorite professor. I tried to stay awake best I could, but I would love kind of one of the first things I'd like to talk about. So me and my business partner, Alex, we merged our two accounting firms together in December of 2023. But through that year of 2023, I was actually doing some accounting work solo, trying to start my own thing. And what a lot of people don't know is that Cindy was actually a very key part of that. She was actually one of the people that gave me some confidence that I could go out and start doing stuff like that on my own. So I'd like to hear your perspective a little bit on how, like, since being my professor in those early days and kind of helping me start this thing from when it was solo to what it's evolved to now. I would love to just hear kind of your perspective on all of that and kind of that journey so far.
Um, Sure, yeah. So, uh, you know, as a professor, our goal, and especially here where I teach at Utah Tech. I mean, we are more of a teaching focused university, and it's not a huge program. So we know all of our students individually. We know everybody by name, and
Mhm.
and we kind of, by the end of your 4 years, we know your parents and your grandparents,
Yeah.
and um, so it makes it really nice. But our whole thing is we just want our students to be happy and succeed with whatever path they choose. And we have students who go to the big four. We have students who end up at local smaller firms. We have people who go into banking and so on. We just want them to pick the path that they feel fits best for them.
Mhm.
Um, and I knew, and you can see it, especially, I mean, I'm going in, past 20 years of teaching now.
Mhm.
You kind of see those students who are more entrepreneurial, and you think, yeah, they're going to own their own firm someday. Um, with you, it was a little different because you were a college football player as well.
Mhm.
And my husband and I would go to the games and cheer for you, and I wasn't quite sure which path you would take, whether it would be more of an athletic and sports focus towards accounting. But it really did not surprise me when you were doing your own bookkeeping and you would come in and ask questions, and how do I handle this, and how do I it did not surprise me at all that you were, branching out into your own field and doing your own thing. That didn't shock me at all.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it was definitely gave me confidence on sales calls. And I used to actually pitch that when we first started. I'd be like, hey, and if I don't know how to do it, like I have all the professors at the university I can go in and they'll help me out. And then they'd be like,
and you
okay,
still do.
sounds good. Yeah, exactly. So that's been awesome, kind of going from, one man band and coming in and having you help, and now actually you being a part of it and playing a bigger role, which has been a ton of fun. Um, and before we talk a little bit more about kind of the accounting and some of the stuff that you do here at Stacks, I would like to talk about the professor side of things just a little bit. So kind of two questions there. And just high level, what Cindy does here at Stacks, she's a senior accountant slash senior advisor. Basically, when anybody has a problem that can't be solved by another person on the team or whoever's in their pod or leadership structure, the highest level person they can get elevated to is Cindy. She's kind of the company wide problem solver. She reviews a lot of the work that our staff accountants do, and she's also the most seasoned person in terms of cleaning up a client's book. So if we get a new client on that needs like a year or two of bookkeeping cleaned up, Cindy oftentimes is the person kind of managing that and spearheading some of that work as well. So I'd like for you to maybe touch on, because you are still currently a professor, and you've been doing that, like you said, about 2 decades now. I'd love to hear how your work as a professor has helped you in your role with us at STAXX, And then also vice versa, how the work you've done at STAXX has maybe made you a better professor.
Oh, it definitely works both ways. So to start with, being a professor, and because I started out, as a staff accountant. My early career, I worked, as a payroll clerk, and I did, I did 15 years,
Mhm.
in the accounting world, um, and then jumping to academics, I used all of that experience in my classroom. So
Mhm.
they know me around here as the storyteller, because pretty much with every lesson I have a story of how it fits into
Mhm.
the real world. Well, now I take that, and with our clients, because we hear a lot when we hear of our especially our clients coming in, this, um, our clients coming in, they're one of their biggest complaints is our accountants right now, they can't explain it to us. They use too much of that accounting jargon, it's too technical.
Mhm.
Well, I can use my professor side and explain things in a very basic
Mhm.
way that they understand.
Yeah, in a way a student could
Oh,
understand it.
okay, I get it now.
Mhm.
And then the other way, I'm learning a lot with, you know, I am the elder statesman on the STAXX team. That's fine. Um, so um, everybody is younger than me, and some younger than my children, but they are they are teaching me things, and different apps and different AI stuff that I can now bring into my classroom and say, hey, here's what's actually happening
Mhm.
in the accounting world right now that we're using in this company, and here's what you guys should be learning. So it
Yeah.
definitely, it, it works both ways. I'm loving it.
Yeah, I love to hear that, and I bet if you like went across the country and pulled all of the recent accounting grads that are just getting into the field to actually work in it, I would almost guarantee their biggest complaint is they didn't get more like directly applicable stuff that actually you're actually doing in the field. I know that was one thing for me. I was like, man, we didn't do like any Excel work or hardly any QuickBooks work besides like one class,
Right.
right? So I think that's what makes you one of the better professors,
Yep.
right? Is because you are always constantly trying to think like, okay, how does this actually translate when these people move on from here? Yeah, and the field is changing a lot right now.
A lot.
There's a lot of cool stuff.
Yep.
There's a lot of third party integrations that are tying two different systems together, right? And just knowing that that software even exists can save hundreds of
Right.
hours,
Yeah.
right? And we have a couple people on our team that are pretty tech forward that like to
Yep.
find those different things,
And
and
I
that's
love
been fun.
learning from them. It's
Hmm.
great. I love learning from them and learning stuff I can take back into my classroom. It's
Hmm.
awesome.
And then my last kind of professor question, then we can move into some more of the specific accounting and what we've done with our clients. But again, you've been teaching for a good while now. I would just be curious, what are maybe the one or two big things that you've noticed that's changed, that you've noticed has changed throughout those 2 decades from when you started teaching, both in terms of the students themselves and just the accounting field in general?
Oh,
Like the difference in the students you taught 2 decades ago versus the students you teach now, as well as maybe how the curriculums change or how the field in general has changed. If there's any, sweeping changes you've noticed.
student wise, I would say that, I've taught in 3 different states. I taught in Michigan, I've taught in Arizona, and now in Utah. And the students, it differed by the college I was teaching, because in Michigan I taught mainly adults who were re-entering the workforce. So these were working adults. They were very focused.
Hmm.
It was get in, learn. Attendance was always almost 100%.
Yeah.
Um, and then, in Arizona and here, the students are pretty much, the what we would call the typical college age. And you get, hit or miss as far as attendance. You get some students who are great. Others are like, yeah, I'll come when I want to, and that's completely their prerogative. But so the biggest thing with students, difference I see from 20 years ago to now would be, um, 20 years ago, students were more, they paid for their education, and so they were fully going to get everything out of it that they could. That they
Mhm.
were going to attend every class, they were gonna join every single club, um, but education was cheaper then. And
Mhm.
now, I would say my biggest difference would be that students now, almost, I would say probably 90% of my students now are working at least part-time, if not full-time, while they're a full-time student because education is so much more expensive.
Yeah.
Um, and so they don't have a choice. They have to work in order to be able to afford it. So here we're doing everything we can here to make it as inexpensive as possible. We're
Totally.
lowering our costs of textbooks, and we're going open resources, and we're doing everything we can. But at the same time, then they're missing out on nobody joins clubs anymore. The nobody attends events after hours. This place is dead because everybody went to their job.
Yeah. And if somebody is going to be paying for their own education, maybe they weren't able
Yeah,
to get scholarship, or maybe it just isn't able to get funded completely all the way, and they're going to have to pay for some of it themselves. I'm sure you have an opinion on choosing a degree that's actually going to be useful, and provide a return. Do you feel accounting is one of those degrees that does that?
I know it is.
Mhm.
We pretty much have 100% placement with our students. If if you have an accounting degree and you don't find a job, either you didn't put in the time and you don't have the GPA, and even then, most people, if you have an accounting degree, they'll still hire you.
You just got
um,
to interview halfway decently.
yeah,
Yeah,
seriously, if you can't find a job, then you're not looking very hard because there are
seriously.
so many accounting positions out there right now.
I think it's one of the industries and career paths that has the most opportunity right now for sure.
Oh, most
Just
definitely.
because, obviously, the average CPA age is like well over 50 for sure.
Yep.
And I think the universities across the country do kind of a poor job marketing the degree. It's
Oh,
not a
yeah.
very sexy degree, right? It's not the first thing you think of when you start going. Um,
Nobody as a child, when they ask their, "What would you like to be when you grow up?" Nobody
mhm.
says, "I wanna be an accountant."
Yeah, and anytime I come across, a young adult, I mean, obviously I'm still a young adult, but someone, 18, 19, 20, that's kind of like, oh man, I'm not sure what to do. I'm like, dude, if you don't know what to do and you're paying for it, like you go change it to accounting,
Literally.
because it's one of those degrees, even if you don't work in the field, the knowledge is still beneficial,
Yep.
past your time in the
Yep.
university. And accounting, there's way more to it than just like filing taxes. And that was one of the cool things having you as a professor and going through the whole 4 years in that program was like, it's like the longer you walk the path, the more it reveals itself. It's like, man, there's all these different paths. I mean, you
Right.
can be a special agent with the FBI as an accountant. You
Mhm.
can be a fraud accountant. I mean, there's a million different things you can do, which is really cool.
And
But
then
now, or go ahead.
you asked me what the other part was, the biggest change in the accounting world.
Mhm.
I would say technology, obviously.
Mhm.
Um, and I laugh because, when I came out of college, and let's just not even go how long ago that was, but we were still using green ledger sheets.
Mhm.
And my very first audit, we were using green ledger books, and doing our sampling in green ledger books. Now, over 30 years later, I'm teaching my students, an AI platform on how to go in and do an audit using this AI software, and it will literally do your sampling for you and tell you what the red flags are.
Mhm.
It's,
It's pretty awesome.
it is, it's incredible. So, that would be my biggest difference in the accounting world is, and if people say, that technology is going to, you're not going to need accountants anymore because the technology is going to take over. That is so wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
It's so wrong. It's
I
just going to
agree.
move people into other platforms. We're not going to be having to do the mundane little tasks that I used to have to do as a staffer. You
Mhm.
know, now you get to do more of the high end critical thinking stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, anyone that tries to tell me, "Oh man, you guys are gonna get wiped out." It's like, okay, I think lawyers are even a better example. It's like, oh, the lawyers are gonna get wiped out. We can make contracts in 2 seconds. It's like, okay, like you can, but if you're doing a deal that's worth $50 million, I bet you're still gonna have a real human look over that paperwork.
Yep.
And there's nuance to everything, especially in accounting and in law. There's always nuance.
Yeah.
And that's where, the human touch, someone like yourself that has the experience can come in and really articulate in a
Right.
way that's understandable. These are the pros, these are the cons, these are the possible risks, all that sort of stuff. And that's important to somebody making those big decisions. So I think the AI is only going to make us more efficient
Right.
more than replace us.
Agreed.
And another piece of it too, there's a lot of people out there that are like, want the bookkeeping specifically to be automated and automatable. They want it so bad, and nobody wants it more than accountants. That's what people don't realize, but it's just not there yet. It,
Yeah.
it probably will be pretty soon, but it's just not all the way there yet. There's just
Not all the way. Nope.
it's getting there. So I'd love to move a little bit away from the teaching and a little bit more into the work that you do here at STAXX and with our clients and stuff. The first piece I'd like to talk about is maybe the culture. You've had the pleasure of working at a lot of different places at this point in your career. I'd love for you to touch on maybe your thoughts working with the team at STAXX, the culture at STAXX, compared to other places you've had the pleasure of working at throughout your career.
Sure. So I've worked in public accounting. I've also worked in managerial accounting. So I have a taste of both. With this is a completely different atmosphere for me. Um, Mainly because we are fully remote. So we don't, you and I are the only one I have really met in person.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the team I have only met through, Zoom meetings and such.
Mm-hmm.
But it still feels like we know each other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have our weekly meetings, and so we do a lot of joking around, and it really does. It feels like a normal office atmosphere to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is very collegial. I mean, and we have just great communication, which I actually was surprised because with the age that everybody is, I mainly find with my students' age, they don't communicate well.
Mm-hmm.
They communicate well through text.
Mm-hmm.
But with this team, it's completely different. Everybody is really good communicators. So we get along really, really well. And we make a really good team where one person has more experience in say manufacturing. Hey, let's lean on that person. Oh, you have more experience with the tech people and the online stuff, online marketing. Oh, let's lean on that person.
Mm-hmm.
So we do really well with leaning on people's strong suits. Um, and it's more of a trust thing. We know you've got the experience. We know you've got the capability. Just do your job. And it's awesome.
100%. Yeah, I was going to say, have you ever felt micromanaged 1 second?
Not even for no, not even for a second. It's great. I mean, I love, joking around with everybody and getting in our Slack channels and messing with people and
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of seriousness too. Hey, we've got a situation. We've got to, and like you said, I do a lot of the problem solving. So if someone comes to me and says, "Hey, I've got a serious issue with this, can you help?" We'll jump into a huddle. We'll get together and we'll spend a couple of hours together and try and dig through it and figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And once we do, we all do the happy dance and
Yeah. They're just like, thank you, Cindy. What would
yeah,
we do without you?
it's fantastic. For me, that excuse me, that comes back to my audit and my fraud brain of you know puzzles, where if there's a situation, if there's a problem, I like to disassemble it and work backwards and figure out where that problem is at and then reassemble it. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's just kind of how my mind works. So, but the team is fabulous. Yeah. You
I
guys
love
have
to hear
done
that.
a great job of creating a culture of complete acceptance of no matter where you're located in the world. And, it's been great.
No, it's been a ton of fun. I think Tom said one of my favorite things I've heard on a team meeting so far. Tom's one of our newer accountants, and we do kind of wins and roadblocks, right? And yesterday, he was like, the win is just like how helpful everybody is. Like, I think in the past week, I've worked one on one in the past week with Eric, Dondre, Kath, Cindy. Like, rattled off basically the whole team that he's had one-on-one time with in just a 1 week span on different things helping out. And obviously as in kind of a leadership role, like we'd love to see that, like just nobody's being left on an island. Um, and everybody does have such unique experiences that why wouldn't you, lean on
Right.
somebody that has a little bit more experience in a certain thing, right?
Yep.
So that's been a ton of fun for us to see as well, because we've added a lot of team members in a short time period, and sometimes it can be kind of hard to cultivate that when you're adding new bodies in so rapidly. I mean, we went from like 3 or 4 of us this time last year to now there's 15 of us,
Mhm.
right? And fully remote, like you said. It's been fun. And some people overseas too. The vast majority is stateside, but we do have a couple overseas team members, and I feel like they've integrated wonderfully.
Yeah.
Um, and a few of those folks you've actually had an opportunity to kind of teach and mentor and lean on.
Mhm.
Maybe you could touch on some of the growth you've seen from some of the more junior level team members from, a year ago to now, being able to work with them.
Oh, you know, the thing is, the teacher in me comes out anytime there is someone comes and says, "Hey, I can't figure this out. Can you help me?" Well, then the teacher in me comes out and I don't just take it over and
Hmm.
fix it and hand it back.
You try
I
to lead
will
them.
I will work on it with them and we'll disassemble it together and then reassemble and say, "Okay, here's what we're doing. This is why we're doing it." And so,
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe, some of them are like, "Yeah, I don't care to learn it all," but, um, everyone has come back and said, "Oh, okay, I get that now. Now I can do it on my own." And
Yeah.
so I think it's been great. Um, and just and some of them are such unique situations. We've had a couple of clients who were very challenging,
Hmm.
and so it's taken more than just one meeting because then a new situation will pop up,
Yeah.
and so, um, we kind of then it comes back to me and whoever's I'm working with, we bounce ideas off each other. And I'm like, "Oh, you know what? That's a greater perspective than what I was thinking." And so then we can go down that road and fix it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I enjoy both aspects of it because again, that teacher side of me pops out and
Yeah. I love it. Well, and like I mentioned earlier, Cindy has done a lot of work on the cleanup side of things. Almost 99% of our engagements when a new client joins us, there is historical work that needs to be cleaned up or caught up or both. Um, Almost every single engagement starts that way.
Mhm.
And you've had your eyes on a lot of books. You've completed a lot of cleanups, or, spearheaded and managed other folks doing the cleanups.
Mhm.
I'd be curious to hear, through your vast experience of doing this, what are some of the big red flags that you often find when you're very first going through a new client's accounting and financials for the first time?
Um, when you see negatives, in the assets, if you see a negative in the assets or you see a negative in expenses, that shouldn't be there. Um,
Yeah.
when you see, especially going into QuickBooks and things aren't balanced correctly, some accountants will just throw everything into, the open equity account or the open balance thing and just throw it in there just to force balance things. And that's never
Or
right.
ask my accountant.
Yes, there's always the ask my accountant category um, that never gets categorized.
Nope.
Um, so those are just some of the bigger red flags. And or we've had a client or two that they'll have two separate QuickBooks
Hmm.
where we can't fix this one, so we're going to use this one just for accounts payable, and then we're going to use this other one for the accounts
Such a
receivable,
pain.
and then we'll merge them when we do the tax return. Well, that's just no.
Yeah. I've run into that way more often than you'd think. It's very common. People are running two different systems,
Yeah,
basically one to send invoices and one to
right.
half-assedly do the accounting,
Yeah.
basically. Oh.
So that you don't need that. If you have a good accountant, a good CFO system like we have, you don't need two systems. You just
Hmm.
need it to be done correctly.
Hmm.
So,
And I think a lot of people don't actually understand what having their accounting reconciled means.
oh no.
There's a
Yeah,
lot of people that I talk to on sales calls and they're like, yeah, it's reconciled. And I think they think that that just means everything's been categorized.
right.
But that's not the same as having things reconciled. Could you maybe touch on what having your accounting reconciled actually means, what it actually look like, and what it
Yep.
actually looks like? Geez, and then why it's important.
So, one of the things I do is I review our staff accountants will go through and they'll do all of the categorizations and make sure everything is in for the month. And then once we get bank statements, or if we have access to those, then the staff accountants will actually go in and reconcile all of the bank accounts and all of the credit card statements and everything and make sure that we're all up to date there. So then when I go in to review it, I will go in and make sure, okay, we are good as far as the reconciliations with the bank. We're good with reconciliations with the credit cards. And then I'll double check and say, okay, what about loans? All of the other liability accounts, are we reconciled there? We had one, that might not have reconciled a note payable. They took out a loan like 6 years ago, and this is when we first took it over, and the accountant had never taken it back off the books. All of the loan payments had gone 100% to interest expense, and they never took the liability off the books. Um, so
Just
you
rookie
just
mistakes.
yeah, you got to reconcile those balance sheet accounts and making sure that everything is up to date.
Yeah.
And it does play with your profitability. You can't be making big mistakes like that because that goes back to your tax return.
100%. Yeah, I think we see that a ton where, the interest isn't factored into the different loans that people have on the balance sheet, or we get a lot of sallies, right? We don't want to see sallies the same as last year, like you mentioned, where that loan balance is just the same for 6 years. I mean, that's just crazy.
Right.
Right. So, and then like you said, if it's not reconciled, even, on the transactional level, the software is not perfect, right?
Nope.
Sometimes it pulls in duplicates, sometimes it omits data. So there's just not a way for it to be truly 100% an accurate picture of your financial standpoint without it actually being reconciled. And that's what's really tough about the accounting industry too right now. And because obviously, if you're watching this, you don't know, I do more of the sales and marketing. So I'm talking to the business owners every day and hearing, what they're dealing with other firms and what's going on. And I think what's really tough for a business owner, especially a business owner doing under, 20 million a year, under 30 million a year, is it's hard for them to even know what good accounting is versus bad accounting.
Hmm.
Like they don't even know, right? And there's a lot of times where maybe they're using a bookkeeping service and that bookkeeping service is only categorizing transactions and never reconciling,
Right.
right? And the owner wouldn't even know the difference, right? So at
Right.
STAXX, obviously, we reconcile everything monthly, just making sure everything's dialed in because we understand the importance. So appreciate you touching on that. Um, and again, you've been with STAXX almost a year now. It's coming up on a year here pretty quick, which is awesome.
Couple weeks.
Here we go. That's awesome. Hopefully, it's a lot more years. As long as you'll stay, you got a spot. So
You're my
um,
retirement plan, buddy.
so I'd love to hear, we do have clients that have been with us 2 years now. I think we even have a few clients that have been with us 3 years. And a lot of clients have passed that 1 year mark now as well. What kind of impact have you seen the work that we've provided some of our clients? What kind of impact has that had on them and their business that you've noticed?
Well, we've got I don't work as closely with each individual client as our CFOs do. I
Hmm.
do at the very beginning with the cleanup, and then I do meetings throughout. But some of the ones that I do have a closer relationship with that I meet with on a regular basis, um, I've seen them, through our, explanations of how things are supposed to run. They are getting a much more clearer picture. They're It's like the student finally their eyes are open and they're like,
Hmm.
I get it now. Um, so yeah, there's that grasp of understanding what the accounts are supposed to look like and what it's supposed to flow, and
Hmm.
um, they're just grasping a greater knowledge of the meaningfulness of the what work we do and how we can put those numbers together and they can see, oh, okay, if I lower, my cost of goods over here, then, so I've seen that knowledge really improve in a number of our clients. Um, and we've gotten, a lot of great clients come back and say, "Oh, we so appreciate you guys. We
Mhm.
we were so lost. We had no idea what was happening with our books. We had no idea what was going on, and you guys have got it all cleaned up." And so yeah, it's you see that knowledge and that growth, and now they can focus on what they do best.
Mhm.
They can focus on the sales and whatever they're doing, and they can leave the accounting stuff to us to focus on, and then we report back to them, okay, you're doing this really well, but you can cut a few things here, and we become a part of their team.
Yeah. And would you say that, and again, obviously the CFO spend a little bit more time
Yeah.
one-on-one with the clients, but you have some interaction as well. Would
Mhm.
you say that that's led to them being more intentional about the business decisions that they make?
Oh, most definitely. A lot of them now really, it's not that they don't make business decisions without us, but a lot of them will say, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you guys think?"
Mhm.
Um, and so it shows that they value our opinion,
Mhm.
the CFOs especially, they check in with them and say, "Hey, this is what we're doing. What do you guys think? And how will it affect this?" And
Mhm.
when we first started with them a year ago, they would have never even done that.
Mhm.
They were just,
Wheeling and dealing.
willy-nilly, and now that they're much more focused, and they're, okay, yeah, I see where that's going to have an effect on me.
Yeah. And I think one of the big light bulbs that goes off too, with some of the clients that maybe don't have as much accounting knowledge or finance knowledge, I think one of the big light bulbs that goes off is they do some of the weekly calls during onboarding, start meeting with the CFOs, the big realization that, net income doesn't equal cash flow, right? And that it is possible to have a profitable month,
Yes.
but have the money in the bank account not go up at all,
Yes.
right? And a lot of people don't.
Yes.
I talk to a lot of people that are like, man, I'm profitable. I know I'm profitable, but well, how come there's no money left at the end? And especially on the tax side, they'll be like, says I made, you know, $1 million. Where'd the $1 million go? Because I don't have $1 million. And it's like, well, there's activities that happened beyond that net income number, such as paying yourself or paying loans or paying credit cards, debt services, that sort of thing. So I think that's one of the core things too that kind of helps them understand um, that side of things.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And this is kind of similar to the question that we just asked, but why do you think it's important for a business that's trying to grow and scale, aggressively grow? Maybe they're trying to double this year and double the next year, maybe have an exit in the next 5 years. For a business that's in growth mode like that and trying to scale, why is it important for them to have the accounting function dialed in?
Um, if you don't know where your money is coming from, and and being specific about it, that's one of the things we do really well, is we break down those revenue buckets. We
Hmm.
break down the revenue streams, and where is most of your money coming from, and then where is your cost going to. If you don't understand that, then you don't know where to focus your energy.
Hmm.
And so I think we give them that focus. And if they're really wanting to grow, then they need to know where to focus their time and energy. Um,
Hmm.
and again, our team is really good about that. We break down those revenue streams. We give them really good KPIs, and this is where you need to focus. This is where you need to go. And I think we've helped a lot of clients do that.
100%. Yeah. And I think it kind of ties back to a little bit, not knowing the difference between good accounting and bad accounting, like you mentioned, right? Um, and this is what I try to explain on some of the sales calls sometimes is that, having a set of financials that's good enough to file a tax return and having a set of financials that's actually useful for business decision making are
Right.
two different things,
Yeah.
very different things, right? Like, yeah, you could lump everything into about 5 or 6 accounts and it would be probably good enough to file your tax return.
Right.
Um, but if you have 3 different service lines, yeah, exactly. We want to see how much each of them is pulling in. Should we spend more of our time and energy and focus on this other service line?
Right.
And the cost of goods sold is another one. Almost every client that comes in doesn't have their cost of goods or cost of services broken out at all,
Right.
which
Yeah.
means that they don't even see a gross profit margin,
Yeah.
right? It's just
Yep.
revenue, expenses, net profit. But it's like if you don't know how much it costs you to deliver your service, how could you be intentional about reducing that cost or increasing those team members' capacities and things
Right.
like that?
Yep.
Totally.
But yeah, I mean, you and Alex have done a great job of making sure that the team is really focused on that and making sure that those are part of the deliverables.
Mm-hmm.
So
100%. We even got a task for it in the
you
project management.
you do. Yeah, and like I said, you and Alex have done a great job of making sure that the team is focused on the correct things, and we have those deliverables. You set up the expectations to begin with, and the team you've assembled is really good at making sure we do deliver, and we deliver in a timely manner.
Mm-hmm. 100%. No, it's been a ton of fun to build. I could honestly chat with you for many hours about this stuff. Um,
And we have before.
yeah, but just maybe another question or two, and then we can kind of wrap up. But in your opinion, how is STAXX different from some of the other more traditional accounting firms out there?
Hmm. Okay. First, I would say it is fully remote. That would be a difference for me. Um, the other part is the age dynamic. The group overall is younger, but not to the point of it's a bunch of teenagers running amok. Um,
Hmm.
everybody is, college educated, very focused, very diligent, professional. But I also have found that every single one of us has almost like experience in different areas. And we have your CFOs who have extensive experience in different places.
Hmm.
And everybody is so collegial. There's no you know competition.
Yeah,
It's
there's
not.
been minimal drama. That's one thing we've been stoked about.
Yeah, there's no big competitive atmosphere. It's not like, you're stepping on people's backs to get promoted. It's just not like that. And I think our clients notice that in the meetings because we're constantly patting each other on the back throughout our meetings, and we've had them notice that, you guys seem like you guys have a really good atmosphere,
Hmm.
which we do. So,
Yeah, and that was something Alex and I definitely have been intentional about because we've both. I mean, Alex actually has worked more in the accounting field than I have. He worked Big Four and kind of did that path for a while, auditing and some of that different stuff. Um, and worked for, he was kind of like a head controller at a, debt financing type place where he was the main accountant, with someone that was very micromanaging over him. And obviously, I started this in college, but I did have two or three different accounting roles kind of throughout college. So I know what it's like to be in that role of the employee. And we just didn't want to be that place where it was like, oh, you took the Friday off to go to your son's baseball game. We're not paying you for Friday, because it's like, but there's a lot of places out there that are like that,
yes.
and we just didn't want to build that place. We wanted to build a place where, people enjoy the work they're doing. I think one thing that a lot of corporate businesses and even small businesses make the mistake is they say, okay, here's this person that's a really good accountant and they've been with us a long time. They're a really good accountant. Now we're going to promote them to managing people and not doing accounting. It's like, well, that person might suck at managing people, but maybe they're a really good accountant. So we kind of believe in like, okay, what role do you thrive in and what role fills your cup up? And if you want to be the best staff accountant on the planet, we will equip you to do that. If you want to move up into some other stuff,
Yep.
let's find a pathway to do that as well.
Yeah.
So, that's something we've been very intentional about. And maybe from a client's perspective, maybe how is it different from a traditional firm? Working
Oh,
with us, maybe working with, some of the other traditional services out there, even in the city that you live in.
yeah, that's very different. From that perspective of you you from a client side, a client of ours has an entire accounting team working for them. You have a staff accountant, you have a senior accountant, you have a CFO, you have a whole team behind you, and we're available to answer questions within 24 hours. And most of the time, it's literally within hours.
Hmm.
um,
Sometimes minutes.
it's sometimes minutes. um, but it truly, if they have a problem, they have an issue, they will communicate with us. We jump on it. They have a staff accountant doing different things. The senior accountant will come in and advise. CFO takes over and does all of the reporting and calculations and all the Fathom reports and all of
Yep,
that stuff.
KPIs and forecasting.
Yeah. So they truly have an entire team behind them, but they don't have all the overhead.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
Yeah, building that team in house, I mean, is a
yes.
multi six-figure venture for sure.
And if you're going to hire an accounting firm, like when I was with the public accounting firm, we had clients and they might stop in once a month, and say, all right, where's my, financials? And we'd be like, oh, um, you know, sorry, we have, 70 other clients. I'll get to you by next week. So they're
Mm-hmm.
5, 6, 7 weeks out.
Mm-hmm.
It just, yeah, the response time isn't there. They get horrendously busy, especially during tax season,
Yep.
where with us, again, it's within 24 hours, 52 weeks. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
So
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one piece of it that people don't realize until it burns them.
Right.
Working with some of the more productized accounting services as well that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see ads for bookkeeping and taxes, $150 or $150
Yes.
a month, and it's very productized. And their business model is, hey, mass market, a minimally viable service to these people.
Right.
And what I've noticed happen to a lot of those folks, because I take a lot of sales calls with them after they get burned,
Yes.
is they get one representative, right? Not a whole team. They get one representative, and it's such a churn and burn environment for both the clients and their staff that as soon as that one representative moves to another opportunity, okay, now I got to re-explain my whole business to this new representative. Whereas with us, if somebody is blessed and finds a better opportunity and moves on, we'll be stoked for them. But okay, you have 5 other people that understand your business and can step right in.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
it kind of does eliminate some of that key man risk as well.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, that was most of the questions I had. I mean, is there any thoughts that you had? Any questions? Final, anything you want to shout out to whoever made it this far?
Oh, I just I appreciate working with you guys. When you reached out last summer, and I just thought, well, this would be a good way to, keep my foot in the door as far as learning what's happening. And I was thinking how it would add to my teaching, which it has, but it's also added, personally as well. So yeah, it's been awesome.
No, it's been a blast. We love having you. Been such a valuable piece of the team for sure. And it's obviously helped your classrooms when I go and come and present to them too, right?
Well,
Duh.
I don't think our local auditors are agreeing, because now a lot of our students are not going to the auditing firms and thinking we can do what Dylan did and we can start our own company.
As they should. As they should. I actually have one kid that's been texting me asking questions a little bit.
Oh,
I can tell you about it after, but it's been awesome. A ton of fun. And yeah, if you watch this far and you want to work with us and our team and awesome folks like Cindy, feel free to just snag a call, snag a time to chat, and we'd be happy to walk through and see if you'd be a good fit for you and your business. So thanks again for hopping on, Cindy, and this was a blast.